truth and authentic tales have long been central to country music. Miranda Lambert, a country music artist, was raised in a home without heat and an outhouse in the bitter cold. However, that wasn't the worst aspect. When she was 6 years old, her parents sent her out to collect evidence in adult cases while wearing a cheerleader costume. Their investigative files led to a presidential impeachment by the time she was 7 years old, and her music would always be plagued by the secrets she discovered over those years. A young girl who saw too much, lost too much, and paid a price, music that no one should have to pay, is the subject of this tale. On November 10, 1983, Miranda Lee Lambert was born in Longview, Texas, with a family history. Lucy Miranda, her great-grandmother, inspired her name. She was thereby bound to something older than herself, even as a baby. Her parents soon relocated to Lindale, a tiny Texas town that appeared uncomplicated on the outside but was tense on the inside. The life they knew fell apart when Miranda was 6 years old. After the 1989 Texas oil crisis hit hard, and money disappeared more quickly than her parents could track it down, their private detective firm failed. Their house was taken away from them. In an attempt to regain their breath, the family moved in with relatives before renting a dilapidated farmhouse with boarded-up windows and no central heating. The winter nights there were harsh. In the bitterly cold darkness, Miranda had to dash to an outhouse. Frequently, the refrigerator was empty. On certain days, they ate whatever they could catch, fish, or gather for dinner. It was music for survival, not for solace. Her early poverty ingrained itself in her, teaching her that hard work was required and that nothing was assured, as she witnessed her parents struggle to keep things together. Rick and Bev Lambert, her parents, were not quiet office workers, they were. Their job permeated the home, and they were private investigators. Case files, whispered names, and music, silent strain were all part of Miranda's upbringing. She was occasionally drawn into it. Since no one would suspect a child, they put her in a cheerleading uniform when she was around 6 or 7 and sent her out to help gather evidence in a case involving an unfaithful spouse. She entered adult messes much earlier than she ought to have. Then, in 1994, attorneys for Paula Jones hired her parents to investigate President Bill Clinton. It was newsworthy on a national level. Later, their files were subpoenaed and included in the House's impeachment hearings. Miranda observed people arguing over issues that began at her parents' table in the dining room. Genuine danger, genuine secrets, music, and real betrayals were all present throughout those years. Later, her songs would reflect all of that. Her father also introduced a different world into the home. Prior to working as a private investigator, Rick Lambert served as a police officer in Dallas and played guitar in the 1970s country rock group Contraband. He maintained that aspect of himself. He sang songs by Merle Haggard, Guy Clark, John Prine, and other songwriters who used straightforward language to convey difficult facts at home. Miranda took it all in. He handed her a guitar and demonstrated the chords, music, and he approached songwriting as a profession rather than a miracle. Her parents encouraged her to pursue music despite their financial difficulties. They were so certain of it that they eventually funded her early performances with funds that could have been used for her education expenses. She was writing alongside her father by the time her first album was released, and their names appeared together in the credits, a subtle indication of the depth of that familial musical heritage. The things she had heard and experienced were already becoming songs by the age of 13. Despite being a teenager from East Texas, the words she wrote reflected the experiences of grown-ups who had gone through courtrooms, divorces, and affairs. After her family relocated to Lindale from Longview, the detective job continued to bring them unsettling tales. Her journals contained those tales. She didn't think a young girl would take the stage when she started singing in smoky, honky venues in East Texas, where adult men were sipping beer. But when she began, spectators fell hushed. She led the house band at Rio Palm Isle, a storied club that had previously hosted Willie Nelson and Elvis Presley. When she was 16 years old, her age was irrelevant to that room. Whether she could command it was important to it. She learnt how to deal with hecklers, how to look someone in the eye, and how to continue singing in the face of offensive remarks. She gained the razor-sharp edge that others would later hear in her voice from those nights. She made an audition for the Johnny High Country Music Review in Arlington, Texas at that time, the same weekly program that gave LeAnn Rimes a boost. At 16, she performed the song Crazy by Patsy Cline on stage. Everyone recognized that song and had an opinion about it, so choosing music was difficult. The judges were captivated by her delivery. She stood out enough to be invited back year after year, despite the rigorous and antiquated evaluation, which was full of people who had heard hundreds of aspirants. She experienced the true meaning of professional examination for the first time. She was informed by some in that scene that she was too country, even for country music, at the same time. Despite how painful the insult was, she continued. It kindled a flame that would eventually give rise to songs about ladies who defied music to remain still. Then something changed. When she was 17 years old in 2000, a family connection helped set up a Nashville recording session. To give her a chance in the town of her dreams, her father invested $6,000, nearly all of their savings. She anticipated creating country music when she entered the studio. Rather, the producers promoted glossy, pop-influenced songs that didn't feel like her at all. They made an effort to make her life less harsh. Miranda noticed that she was losing herself in her own tunes. Knowing how much that $6,000 meant to her family, she eventually left in tears. She would later refer to it as a cheap lesson, as it made it abundantly evident what she would never do again. She used that disappointment to her advantage back in Texas. She pleaded with her father to teach her more guitar, practiced for hours until her fingers ached, and began expressing her resentment and obstinacy via her own songs. These early songs were straightforward and unvarnished, brimming with disobedience, distrust, and heartache. She wrote enough for an album by the time she was 17. The polished Nashville system was far from her home studio, where she recorded 10 songs in 2001. She sold the CDs at local gigs, manufactured them herself, and placed her name on the cover. She didn't require approval from someone in a glass office, as evidenced by that small independent album. As a result, she performed on her first major national platform. Miranda tried out for the new TV show Nashville Star in 2003 at the age of 19. Rather than selecting a safe cover, she went with Greyhound Bound for Nowhere, an original song she co-wrote with her father. The song described a covert relationship with a married individual, which she had witnessed via her parents' private investigations but had not personally experienced. She informed the judges that although she had not yet experienced many of those sufferings, she had witnessed the damage that betrayal could do to others. That year, more than 8,000 vocalists applied to be on the event. 12 were selected. Among them was Miranda. She continued to draw attention during the 9-week run. Although she lacked the flawless polish of some finalists, her harsher song left a lasting impression. The crowd began to recognize her as she sang songs like Hell on Heels with a serene kind of passion. There were battles behind the scenes. In order to fit the desired television persona, producers encouraged her to dress more provocatively. She declined. Instead, she went for jeans and boots, which went well with the Texas bars she had visited. Her intransigence nearly cost her, but it also demonstrated to those around her that she wouldn't exchange herself for a spot on a show. She later claimed that the entire experience was similar to attending college. She learned how to operate a camera and stage, as well as how phony and politicized the industry can be. After Buddy Jewell and John Arthur Martinez, she placed third at the end of the season. However, people continued to relive her audition and performances. An influential person had been observing. Sony Music executive Tracy Gerzian recognized something in her that other label personnel did not. However, several businessmen questioned if a young woman with a sharp tongue and a weapon could sell records. He persisted in encouraging his business to take a risk. Miranda did not go home and wait by the phone when the performance concluded. She started driving. She opened for performers like Ter Grow and Jack Ingram in more than 200 gigs annually in Texas, particularly at venues like Love and War. She loaded in, played, and loaded out every night, gradually assembling a group of people who came especially for her. Only a few months after her third music place finish, in September 2003, she was signed by Sony Nashville. The value of the contract, music, was $300,000. A long cry from the farmhouse with its boarded windows and refrigerator empty. It allowed her to leave her work as a waiter and devote herself entirely to music. However, it also meant that she had to leave her comfortable life in Texas and relocate to Nashville for music. Her ability to maintain control would be put to the test with that maneuver. After arriving in Nashville, Miranda took a chance. On her debut major label record, she insisted on live instrumentation and songs. She was co-producing songs with Frank Little and Mike Rucker and working on an album titled Kerosene. Miranda wanted the stomp and scrape of actual players in a room, while most labels favored smoother, more polished sounds produced in large facilities. Sony wanted a more seamless, cross-platform sound. She resisted, claiming that the things she was delivering were consistent with the unadulterated living feeling. She stood her ground during those stressful fights. The risk paid off when Kerosene was released in February 2005. The album sold over 53,000 copies in its first week and debuted at #1 on the Billboard Top Country Albums chart, which is nearly unheard of for a new artist. Kerosene, the song's title track, was a tale of retaliation about setting an ex-lover's home on fire. The violent sight surprised radio programmers. Angry letters began to come in from conservative listeners. Music. She was accused by some of glorifying arson. Others felt as though someone had finally voiced what they had always dreamed about, particularly women who felt invisible. The song reached #15 on the country charts despite all the commotion. And she was signed to a new press company, the Bad Girl of Country. The album sounded more than just rough. That's how it was constructed. The live sound was hailed by critics, who described Kerosene as unique in today's mainstream country. A project that was nice and catchy at first, but it was actually sharper and more truthful. Songs like Kerosene and the early form of what would eventually become Gunpowder and Lead conveyed a level of rage that was uncommon for female vocalists. For some, particularly women weary of neat conclusions, the same lyrics that caused anxiety became a lifeline. Miranda was aware that it included the criticism. On TV, she calmly stated, "It is fantasy. Women have anger too." Her admirers adopted that statement as a catchphrase. There was a cost associated with the success. She embarked on a demanding tour schedule to promote Kerosene. Music, playing 250 shows over 18 months, including opening for country music powerhouse George Strait. During a performance one evening, a guitar string broke mid-song. She continued. The audience saw her overcome the error as she continued to sing and play. Such moments gradually converted audiences from skeptics to believers. The album achieved platinum status by 2006. But she eventually succumbed to the pressure and incessant travel. She once passed out backstage after a performance due to tiredness. It demonstrated how far she was prepared to go for the work, but it also served as a warning sign of the burnout that would eventually haunt her. She expanded on what Kerosene had begun with her second huge album, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. She returned in 2007 with a fresh batch of incisive tunes. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend peaked at #6 on the Billboard 200 All Genres chart and at #1 on the Billboard Top Country Albums chart. In the first week, almost 55,000 copies of the music were sold. Her true Texas existence, where everyone knows your business before you do, served as the inspiration for the lead hit, Famous in a Small Town. Her first top 10 country success of her career, the song peaked at #7 on the country chart and #52 on the Hot 100. The CD was filled with tales of small-town, music, grief, and retaliation. It was also evident from songs like Gunpowder and Lead that she had no intention of softening herself for the radio. She was once more struggling for control behind the scenes. As Crazy Ex-Girlfriend was being made, Miranda realized that she was losing the sound. She sensed that the production was approaching the Nashville template that she had previously rejected because it was safer. She took a risk at the age of barely 23. Halfway through the recording process, she fired a producer and took over production herself. At the time, young artists, particularly women, hardly ever experienced that. Although the decision damaged her relationship with her label, it preserved the gritty quality of the album. Songs like Gunpowder and Lead might not have sounded as intense without that choice. People in town were taken aback by the move, which made it obvious that she would not cede her voice to anyone else. Her ascent also began to appear at award ceremonies. She was recognized as the 2007 Academy of Country Music's Female Vocalist of the Year. She was only 23 years old when she entered the music industry, competing against established artists like Faith Hill and Martina McBride, who had dominated the industry for years. Her unexpected victory sparked conversation in Nashville music. She was still considered a dangerous newcomer by some insiders. Rumors circulated about quiet feuds and broken egos. Rumors that competing circles were being formed by people in reaction to the change. That was a pivotal moment for Miranda. It demonstrated that, despite the intensity of her songs, the industry could no longer overlook her. At this point, her personal sadness started to show out in more emotional songs. In early 2009, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend's fourth single, More Like Her, peaked at number 17 on the country charts. Her personal breakup agony, and the silent concern that perhaps she ought to have been nicer, more compassionate, and more like the woman who followed her were the inspiration for the lyrics. She didn't give the tabloids those information. She wrote it while attempting to move on and wondered whether she had failed in some way. Many fans were able to hear their own doubts in the music lines because she kept music private and let the song speak for itself. The song became a classic because of her desire to transform her personal suffering into something that others could relate to. Road life continued to be hazardous. Her tour bus shook everyone on board and injured multiple crew members when it crashed in Oklahoma in 2008. That incident broke everything down for someone who had earned a reputation for being tough. Later on, she wrote a song titled Bring Me Down that expressed her concern. She revealed a weakness to the audience by performing it with tears in her eyes on the subsequent performance. The accident made her consider the true costs of touring constantly and served as a reminder that the career she had chosen, music, came with genuine risks. Her voice, which had begun in a chilly Texas farmhouse, grew up surrounded by case files and hunting meals, and battled its way through smoky bars, low-budget studios, and television lights, gained another dimension as a result of that vulnerability. Miranda Lambert entered Nashville, which was already in the revolutionary era. However, that record changed her completely. Revolution was released by Columbia Records Nashville on September 29, 2009, and it immediately became popular. With 66,000 music copies sold in the first week, it immediately shot to the top of the Billboard Top Country Albums chart, her third consecutive #1 on the country chart, and the largest opening of her career at the time. The album had 15 tracks that alternated between quiet, damaged moments and loud, flaming ones. She leaned on Ashley Monroe for some of the most incisive lines, included a version of Fred Eaglesmith's "Time to Get a Gun," and enlisted her then-boyfriend, Blake Shelton, to assist compose and perform on "Maintain the Pain." It appeared to be a solid country record on paper. It felt more like a turning moment in actuality. Slowly but surely, the numbers increased. On February 16, 2010, Revolution sold over 500,000 units, making it a gold standard. By October 15, 2010, it has reached platinum status, and with 2 million copies sold by October 1, 2018, it had achieved double platinum status. It had already sold roughly one by 2016. In the US, there are 79 million copies. Behind those statistics was a lady who began the record in February 2009 and wrote or co-wrote 11 of the tracks. She took that trash, music, sat down, and converted it into hooks and lines while her personal life was falling apart. People in the background talked about her alleged frenzied writing, music, sessions, and the inner turmoil that seemed to lie beneath all that polish. As Nashville watched her evolve from underdog to force, fans were taken aback by an album that conveyed grit, old wounds, and a defiant sense of independence. Since they had been expecting light party songs, it wasn't even a song she wrote that provided the most convincing evidence of her abilities. Music. On February 13, 2011, The House That Built Me, another member of Revolution, astonished the country music industry by winning Best Female Country Vocal Performance at the 53rd Grammy Awards. A lot of people thought Carrie Underwood's temporary residence would prevail. Rather, Miranda's name was The House That Built Me. Music, a heartfelt tale about returning to your childhood home and attempting to recover via memories. It was penned by Tom Douglas and Alan Shamblane. In May 2010, it peaked at number 1 on Hot Country Songs, Music, and on January 31, 2011, it received platinum certification. However, the subsequent honors elevated it to a higher level. It won Single Record of the Year, Song of the Year, and Video of the Year at the 46th ACM Awards on April 3, 2011. Then, it won the year's Best Music Video and CMA Song. A single song encapsulated 5 significant victories. That song didn't seem like fiction to her parents. When her father, Rick's private investigation company, failed in the 1980s, they initially believed she had written about their own crisis. Music. They were on the verge of destitution after losing their Texas home, moving into a dilapidated rental, hunting deer, and cultivating vegetables to stay nourished. She carried that mansion in her bones. Therefore, the emotion in her voice came from a genuine place when she stood at the Grammys and dedicated the song to her roots at a time when her career was taking off. The Revolution itself continued to win awards for. It was the 2010 ACM Album of the Year and the 2011 CMA Album of the Year. She became the first woman since Shania Twain to win both for the same project with that sweep, which was reminiscent of Shania's The Woman in Me era. Music, and the 13-year interval between those victories. Miranda was just 27 years old when she was abruptly compared to someone whose 1995 album had sold 40 million copies globally. She shocked everyone by dedicating the victory to her broken household in her April 2011 ACM acceptance speech. She talked candidly about her parents' bankruptcy in the 1980s, when they were practically without a place to live and subsisting on game meat and garden food in that shabby apartment. The ache inside the house that built me was instantly connected to these specifics by fans. According to some in Nashville, she was disclosing too much and revealing more about her music than is customary for a celebrity. Even though she placed higher on the winners list than veterans like Keith Urban, those same stories gave her a sense of humanity. She drew inspiration for revolution from genuine emotional ruins. She went through a difficult breakup in early 2009, but she used the anguish as motivation to write a significant portion of the album in a 2-week period. Only Prettier, which was completed with Natalie Hemby in a cabin near Pigeon Forge, has a sardonic smile and pointed teeth. The 2010 track Only Prettier, which claimed that we are the same, only I am prettier, took aim at sophisticated high society types. Some listeners interpreted this as a subtle jab at a more music, pop-friendly celebrity. Rumors circulated that she and Taylor Swift were at odds in 2009 and 2010. According to tabloids, Miranda rolled her eyes at songs about heartbreak and boys when she was interviewed. Miranda occasionally made hints that she viewed herself in a different lane, but nothing was ever confirmed and there was never an open fight. She wrote 4 songs in 2 hours on a crazy day, many of which she co-authored with Ashley Monroe. She combined the original songs with covers, like That's the Way the World Goes Round by John Prine. When her team learned that she had accumulated 11 co-writes while still embroiled in controversy with boyfriend Blake Shelton, they were taken aback. She eventually found her footing as a touring artist after releasing that record. She started her first headline Revolution tour at the end of 2009. She performed on over 40 dates, sold millions of tickets, and began accumulating the career total that would eventually exceed $6 through 2010. Approximately $395 million in overall income and 8 million tickets sold. However, success was accompanied by anarchy. During a live performance intended to showcase her new era at the November 2009 CMA Awards, her dress tore in the middle of the song, exposing a portion of her bra on national television. She laughed off backstage, but she never forgot the harsh country realness that became a viral moment before social media had really developed. Although the tour continued to sell out arenas, she was under increasing pressure from travel, expectations, and continuous promotion. Her personal life was linked to another growing celebrity at the same time that her music career reached these highs. Blake Shelton and Miranda Lambert had initially met in 2005. However, they wed music in a lavish ceremony with over 550 guests on May 14, 2011 in Texas. At the reception, Kelly Clarkson and Reba McEntire performed. Overnight, their wedding made them music. The most viewed couple in country music. Miranda made her public debut on November Honest, 2011 in the same year, At the time, the album became her highest-charting record. In its first week of sales, it sold 133,000 copies and debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Top Country Albums list and number 3 on the Billboard 200. It was certified platinum by 2014, having sold over 1 million copies in the U.S. The couple's glow was enhanced by the songs on that LP. Fans who had embraced the notion that they were the country's golden pair began to love their duet, Better Together. Because one of her greatest music stories was also included on the LP. One particularly striking, darkly humorous song that chronicled a family drama through a breakup was Mama's Broken Heart. By September 2015, the song had sold roughly 1.96 million copies in the music United States and had risen to number 2 on both the Billboard Country Air and Hot Country Songs charts. It was written by Casey Musgraves, Shane McAuley, Brandy Clark, and music. Miranda's voice and demeanor, however, made it easily recognizable. 26:58. Her mother's admonition to act like a lady after a heartbreak served as the inspiration for the song's lyrics as a child. The song's relatable blend of music, humor, and rebellion earned her the highest ranking of her career at number 20 on the Billboard Hot 100 at the time. The tune, Music, soon became one of those songs that people used to describe who she was as an artist, and critics praised the production and the bite in her delivery. Their hold on country honors grew along with their marriage and music. Miranda won Female Vocalist of the Year at the CMA Awards Music each year from 2009 to 2015. Blake began receiving nominations for Male Vocalist in 2011. People in the industry started referring to them as an awards machine because their names appeared side by side so frequently. In private, some insiders grumbled that their collaboration gave them a monopoly-like position in popular culture, stealing notoriety and attention that could have gone to other musicians. Their combined fame seemed to be much more significant than their individual contributions, which fueled Nashville's awe and jealousy of music. On the road, the price of that achievement was revealed. Joint touring, especially Blake's unwavering and well-lit tour, demonstrated how difficult it was to have a stable marriage. Miranda, Music, missed home dates as careers took off because Blake was busy filming The Voice in Los Angeles. She turned her annoyance into songs like Hardest Part and relied on composing to express what she was sometimes unable to say in interviews. Later, others who were close to them talked about how their obligations, incessant travel, and tapings tore them apart. She sang about music, distance, empty hotel rooms, and the burden of loving someone you hardly saw in her songs from that era. After that, there was gossip, which made things even more stressful. Tabloids started publishing cheating claims in 2012, alleging Miranda had texted flirtatiously or had a romantic relationship with another guy. Her tour partner that year, Chris Young, was forced to publicly refute rumors, linking him to the incident, and make it plain that he would never betray their friendship. Miranda was at the top by the time Platinum showed up on June 3, 2014. With 180,000 first-week sales, the album shot to the top of the Billboard 200 and went on to win the 2015 Grammy for Best Country Album. It also took home accolades from the ACM and CMA. By February 2016, it had achieved platinum status. She received more recognition for songs like Automatic. However, Vice faltered since radio stations persisted in excluding women. She was battling a system that frequently denied female artists a voice, even in triumph. Her narrative was expanded upon in Tin Man, which was published on The Weight of These Wings in 2016. Along with Jack Ingram and John Randall, she penned it on her porch. It resulted from her own suffering as well as the anguish of her parents' divorce. She connected the Tin Man's emptiness to her sadness. The song's loneliness was felt by listeners, and as a result of individuals seeing their own tales in it, it became viral. In 2014, her platinum tour attracted enormous audiences. More than 23,000 people attended the Indianapolis performance, which contributed to the tour's gross revenue exceeding $1 million. However, rumors of disagreements with Blake Shelton, surfaced throughout this run. Despite the cheers of the crowd, their relationship was deteriorating. She continued to give powerful performances, lighting venues with pyrotechnics and featuring special guests like Justin Moore and Thomas Rhett. But the pressure behind the scenes continued to mount. When she halted her performance in the middle of that tour to reprimand fans for snapping photos rather than enjoying the concert, it was a moment that shaped the public's response to her. It quickly became viral. There was a lot of criticism, with people debating proper concert behavior. Her Mutt Nation Foundation, which raised $1 million for animal shelters, gained notoriety around the same time, but it was later accused of poor management. Conference. There seemed to be a constant tug-of-war between criticism and acclaim in music. Her first #1 hit was her duet with Carrie Underwood, Something Bad. However, label pressure shaped the partnership. She acknowledged that it was a premeditated attempt to gain radio exposure at a period when female musicians were being marginalized. Even though the song achieved double platinum status, it exposed the industry's influence on even its most well-known musicians. Then July 2015 arrived. After 4 years of marriage, Miranda and Blake announced their divorce on the 20th. The statement requested privacy, but within 3 months, tabloids ran nearly 200 headlines. Numerous people accused her of adultery using entirely made-up tales and false pictures. She later claimed that it caused PTSD-like symptoms in her. She had never been ready for an invasion of such magnitude. Her music was inspired to create The Weight of These Wings by the Sadness. She recorded 24 songs during late-night sessions with Frank Little and Eric Mass for the album, which was released on November 18, 2016. It sold over 133,000 copies in its first week of release, debuting at #1 on the Country Albums chart and #3 on the Billboard 200. In the end, it became platinum. Although they were appreciated for their artistry, songs like Vice were deemed too harsh for country radio. She distinguished out with a project that critics adored, while men dominated the charts. She publicly discussed gender inequality in country, music, radio that year. In 2016, women performed just 10% of the songs. She claimed that because she trusted all 24 tracks, she would not edit her album down. Since she was a teenager and bar owners informed her they didn't book girls, she had experienced music sexism. Other women were inspired to speak up by her voice. Her dating life inspired new music tales as she attempted to recuperate. She had a brief romance with Anderson East in late 2016. They performed together at the BMI Awards on October 31 Music and the CMA Awards on November 2. It was dubbed revenge dating. Even though the relationship did not continue long, she subsequently claimed that treatment became her true anchor and that it allowed her to breathe again. In 2019, Wildcard followed. It signaled a shift in both life and music. In January 2019, she secretly wed NYPD cop Brendan McLachlan, and the album served as her first significant post-divorce chapter. It sold almost 72,000 copies in its first week, landing it at the top of the country album chart. In 2020, Bluebird took home the ACM Song of the Year award. It was dubbed Fearless by critics. Another significant achievement was her Velvet Rodeo Las Vegas residency, Music, in 2022 and 2023, which brought her almost $20 million from 30 performances. However, she had to postpone concerts in 2023 due to extreme vocal strain. She was unable to talk for weeks. She expressed concern that she might not sing in the future. Through messages and anecdotes, fans clung to her, and she gradually recovered with rest and therapy. If I Was a Cowboy, from her 2022 album Palomino, Music, put her at the top of the country music charts. Nevertheless, her life started to pick up speed. She acknowledged that she experienced burnout in 2024 and took a break. She relaxed, played golf, and spent time at home with Brendan. She was able to reignite her passion for music during the interval. Then November 2025 arrived. On the same day, Sugar Pie and Adriana, her two cherished 18-year-old mini horses, passed away. She had known them for almost 2 decades. She related her loss to her Mutt Nation objective while sharing it with her supporters. She was reminded by the flood of messages that so many people were familiar with this type of suffering.